Good evening. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. I would like to call the meeting of the City of Wildwood's Board of Adjustment to order. The board members present today are Jared Frank, board member, Deborah Coleman, board member, Bob Nandor, alternate, and myself, Michael Garrett, vice chair, acting as chair this evening. The Department of Planning staff present are Joe Vunich, Director of Planning, and Kathy Arnett, Assistant Director. City Attorney John Young and Court Reporter Courtney Tallman are also present. First, I offer into record the affidavit of publication pertaining to today's meeting, June 20th, 2019, and take official notice of the zoning ordinance of the City of Wildwood, including Ordinance 28, authorizing and establishing the Board of Adjustment's powers and duties. Now, let me explain the hearing procedure. Please be aware the information I am about to describe is also provided on the Board of Adjustment Public Hearing Procedure handout, which is available on the table in the back of the chambers. This is an informal type of hearing. However, the meeting's proceedings will be recorded by a reporter for future transcription if necessary. The petitions are called in the order listed on the agenda. As the petition is called, I will ask a Department of Planning staff member to read each request into the record. Then the petitioner or their representative will come forward, state their name and address, be sworn in by the court reporter, and make a brief presentation to the board explaining the nature of the requested variance and the hardship necessitating it. The board will only consider the nature and condition of the property and whether these factors mandate a variance in order to allow for its full utilization. Board members may ask questions to clarify the facts of the petitioner's presentation. When the board is satisfied with the material presented by the petitioner, the chair will then ask if there is anyone present in the audience who would like to speak in favor or opposition to the request. Each speaker will be asked to come forward, provide their name and address, be sworn in, and then state their comments. Please remember, speakers should only address the board at all times. No discussion between parties is permitted, and please keep discussion among the audience to a minimum. Procedurally, the petitioner may request a continuance at any time during the hearing, prior to a call for the vote, in order to bring in additional documentation or information. The board may also request a continuance to gather additional information or for a further visit to the site. After the conclusion of input from all interested parties, the board may call a staff person forward to provide the Department of Planning's report on this matter if requested by any member of the board, the petitioner, or any individual in attendance. Additionally, any other information not presented in the previous testimony but pertinent to the request will be noted at this time. Once all speakers have been heard, the chair will call for a motion to grant or deny with or without conditions. Then the board will vote. At that time, the discussion relating to the petition is concluded and no further input is permitted. The board will generally make a decision today. 4 members of the board must vote in favor of the petition for it to be approved. If a variance is approved, the petitioner has 6 months to obtain the necessary permits or establish the use, or it will expire. I'm going to take a brief break from this. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that there are 4 people here tonight. You will need all 4 to vote yes for that to be approved. Are there either of the parties that are not satisfied with that opportunity? Mr. Godai, you're okay with that? Okay. And you're okay with that? Okay. I just want to get that on record that we're all good with that. If the board's decision is unfavorable, the petitioner has the right of appeal to the St. Louis County Circuit Court. This appeal must be done within 30 days of the decision. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, the board will proceed. May the first request be read into the record, which will be followed by initial comments by the Department of Planning and a brief slide presentation. Thank you.
BA 1019, Matthew and Kelly Godai, 278 Bountiful Point Circle, Wildwood, Missouri 63040. Request an exception to the Natural Resource Protection Standards for the purpose of completing the installation of a fence, which will encroach into a portion of the 100% protected area upon the subject property, which is located at 278 Bountiful Point Circle, locator number 24U410531, enclaves at Cherry Hills Subdivision, Plat 4, Lot 45, with the lot currently being zoned R1A, 22,000 square foot residence district, with the Planned Residential Development Overlay District, PRD. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415.120 R1A Residence District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 420.200 Natural Resource Protection Standards of the City of Wildwood Subdivision and Development Regulations, and Planned Residential Development Overlay District Ordinance Number 865. This is located in Ward 8, and this item was postponed at the May 16th, 2019 meeting, and no action was taken.
Thank you, Kathy. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the board, before beginning the introduction into the record, several items that the city would like to have as part of that record. The Department of Planning would like to pass its condolences on to Mr. Garrett on the passing of your father. We realize he was 99 years old, but it's never easy. So our sympathy, sir.
Thank you very much.
Additionally, before introducing those items into the record, in this particular case, i.e. this petition, the postponement was premised on having one of the Department of Planning employees here to address comments that were made by the petitioner and questions that were raised by the board members. As you know from an email that was provided to you, that particular planner suffered an accident on Saturday and had to undergo surgery to repair some tendons and some breaks in her leg and is unavailable tonight. I extend my apologies as the director of the department for the delay it caused Mr. Godai, as well as the board members, but it's unavoidable and certainly understandable, and we'll do the best we can tonight to address this particular petition, that being Kathy, Mr. Young, and I. More to the practical matters. As part of this particular request, the department would like to introduce into the record again Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Chapter 415 of that same municipal code, the zoning ordinance. The file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular petition and all contents contained therein, which includes the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any other testimony or other items that are offered as evidence tonight at this particular hearing. Mr. Chair, as you noted, Ms. Arnett has slides that she can provide to the board that gives a summary of the particular subject site. And if she is allowed to do so, before the hearing begins with the petitioner coming forward, the department would respectfully request an opportunity to speak before.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Kathy? Thank you so much.
Thank you. The first slide is an aerial photograph of the general area around the subject site, which is shown in blue. I'm just trying to give you an idea of the location within the city. It's part of the Enclaves at Cherry Hills subdivision, which is a linear subdivision that was formerly Cherry Hills Golf Course. You can see Schnucks Wildwood Crossing in the upper right of the screen, City Hall on the upper left to give you location of along Manchester Road. This is an aerial photograph of the subject property, again identified in blue. You can see its frontage along Bountiful Point, the location of Old Fairway Drive to the back, including where Cherry Hills Meadows Drive comes into Old Fairway Drive near the rear of the petitioner's property. This is the subject site itself. This is Bountiful Point Circle. Looking in a northwesterly direction, you see Old Fairway Drive being identified in about mid-slide. This is Bountiful Point Circle looking in the other direction, so we're now looking more east, and the subject site is now on the right side of the slide. This is the petitioner's rear yard. You can see the fence posts that were installed as he began the project. You'll hear reference to the berm, the landscape berm in the back. It is partially on the petitioner's property, partially in common ground, which he did get approval for, but it just referenced where its location is. And the entire rear yard that you're seeing is natural resource protected area. You can also see just beyond the berm, that's some common ground and has a city multiple use trail located through it. And the street in the distance is Old Fairway Drive running parallel to the property and Cherry Hills Meadows Drive that terminates into essentially right behind the petitioner's property. This is again the petitioner's rear yard looking from, basically I'm standing on the corner of the berm looking into the rear yard. Everything beyond between the fence posts and the patio is the 100% protected area. This is the berm and the multiple use trail to show its proximity to the petitioner's property. You can see one of the fence poles that's installed, so that's right where the petitioner's property line is. This is the site plan showing the petitioner's property. So you can see the natural resource protection line, the area to be preserved, and the fence identified in red. Just a close-up of the same. And then the next one is just topographic, which is a relatively flat, smaller site, but I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Any questions for the department? Great, Kathy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. The department appreciates your indulgence in this regard. As you know, at the May meeting, there were a number of statements and questions asked about the process that led Mr. and Mrs. Godai to begin the installation of the fence in the resource protected area without appropriate approvals from the city. The board, wanting to ensure that any decision that is made is fair, had requested, if it was acceptable to the Godais, that a postponement be offered, and then at the June meeting have an opportunity to have all pertinent parties participate. As I mentioned in the department's opening remarks, the planner that had the interaction with the petitioners is not available for tonight's meeting. Saying all of that, the department does not necessarily want to try to pick a winner or loser relative to any of the comments or process that followed before. Suffice to say that our resident, Mr. Godai, proceeded forward in what I believe the best information he had, and I'm sure the planner in the Department of Planning did the best she could. So from that perspective, the department is trying to avoid picking a side per se, and so from there, the department began just a true analysis of the information that was available at the May meeting, and more importantly, the information provided at the May meeting. And at the May meeting, Mr. Godai noted that there is a trespass issue associated with this property. And that's a key issue because in the past, this board and other members that have served on this board have always looked at trespass issues relative to the resource protection area differently than any other type of structure or building. In fact, the majority of variances granted in the enclaves at Cherry Hills subdivision, where this lot is located, have been those for trespass issues. So it's important to note that the department has altered its recommendation from a perspective of not supporting to supporting based upon, again, information provided primarily at the May meeting. Suffice to say that trespass can be an elusive item to identify and verify. But also at that May meeting, the president of the homeowners association of this particular subdivision, Jim Jensen, mentioned that there is legitimacy to that concern and that he and the other trustees do support this particular fence location upon this lot. I've known Mr. Jensen for many years, since the inception of the subdivision when he was one of the first residents there. We've worked closely together as president of the Homeowners Association and the Department of Planning and Parks, and certainly his input played a big role in the change in the department's recommendation in this regard. The findings of fact basically summarize what I've just said, but I thought it appropriate that the Board of Adjustment understand that trying to sort through the facts now, several months to the arrears, is probably not to the benefit of any party or parties, and that let's look at it from the perspective of what we've done in the past, the practical difficulty, and the circumstances associated with the lot. And hopefully in the department's report, you found that satisfactory for support of this variance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate the extra input. That was very helpful.
And if there's any questions at this time, I'd be glad to try to answer them. If not, I would yield the podium to the petitioner with the chair's permission.
Absolutely. Any questions for the department at this point? Great. Joe, thank you so much for the extra input. Mr. Godai, how are you, sir? Welcome back.
Thank you.
If you would please state your name, address, and relationship to the property, please.
Absolutely. My name is Matthew Godai. I reside at 278 Bountiful Point. I'm a homeowner.
Be sworn in, please.
Do you solemnly believe that?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Godai, if you would please explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance, please.
Absolutely. So I've got a 4-year-old, which I said last time. I had we had a 4-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old. If we have a 4-year-old first, we'd have one child. He's quite a little handful, to say the least. God love him, but he's out there. So we initially wanted to go about doing the fence when he started getting out in the backyard, and we kept finding issues, whether it would be safety issues with now all the heavy traffic going through the neighborhood, especially coming off of the back street, which we just had that again tonight. We had a car, and now that it's nicely, smoothly paved, fresh pavement going through there, now the kids are really ramping up and trying to tear up the pavement already. So, which is interesting enough as it is. But we are constantly finding, we had installed cameras on the back of the house because we kept finding more and more stuff in the yard. We get, from the top of the hill, we get kids that'll, instead of going down the bike path or down the path, the multiple-use path, and going down and around the corner, they would start at the top of the hill, cut through the yard, cut through the neighbor's yard, and then come out the other side, whether it would be on bikes or just by foot or whatever the case may be. To the point of, in fact, literally, as of last night even, there was a McDonald's bag that was thrown on top of the playground set, and it set off our motion detector set off, and I happened to be just getting home from Lake of the Ozarks from doing a work project, and was sitting there in the motion detector went off, and I looked, and I had two kids going through the yard, and they literally chucked a McDonald's bag up on top of the playground set. So we find that occasionally. It doesn't happen as often since the berm. We built the berm up a little bit. It's slowed it down a little bit, but it definitely hasn't stopped it. We've found that. We've had other food bags tossed into the yard, and I'm assuming they're just cutting through too. It has settled down quite a bit since Jack in the Box closed, since that seemed to be the in and out for all the kids. But it's not unusual to find. We found kids swinging on the swing. We hear noises that go out there, and I'll look, and they jump up and run. But they're literally swinging on the swings since it's so close to the path area, as well as once they're there, they can split through the backyard. As a former police officer, it's one of those things I know better than to bother St. Louis County with it. Very good friends with all the guys here, and it's one of those things of they're already spread too thin. I don't need to call them on every occasion. I responded to enough of those calls when I was a police officer to know better than to, you're not going to find them. They're going to be 6 yards down or in the back in their own house. So I would often talk to the guys, and I know a lot of the guys would sit at the pool and watch on midnights and write reports and things like that. But it doesn't seem to slow down, as well as the use of the traffic, which we discussed. And I know we discussed it last month's neighborhood meeting, and everybody was trying to come up with ideas that would make sense to slow the traffic down. But really, that's just going to be an issue that's always going to be ongoing, no matter what we do. In reality, I mean, everybody's got ideas of things of that nature. But at the end of the day, our main concern is people going through the yard, leaving things in the yard. We found beer bottles in the yard. We found other things in the yard. And by putting this fence up, it gives us at least the advantage of keeping some of that to a minimum. You can't control what someone's going to throw from the walking path into the yard, but you can keep people from cutting through and just dropping things in the yard. And with our 4-year-old running out there and being able to do something, it would be nice to be able to utilize the yard as it is. Currently, everybody, the kids have all grown up playing in the driveway just because of the heavy traffic in the backyard. And with the slope of the backyard, if they kick a ball, it rolls down the hill and gets close to rolling into the street, which would then help with, obviously, the ball would be stopped by a fence. Keeps everybody kind of contained and lets us enjoy the backyard. As well as in terms of the berm, we put that up to both for multiple purposes. The neighborhood allowed us to go into the common ground, and their action was that that's less that the neighborhood has to maintain, and it was by their decision that as long as it was done nicely, which obviously we put a lot of money into that to make it look nice and do the appropriate thing without doing anything too restrictive. And then even putting the fence on the inside of it on that was actually on our physical property. So it was well thought out. It wasn't something that we just shot from the hip and just did. And the misunderstanding between myself and that it was basically I don't know if she got confused with a different address or what, but I'd even asked to the point of when I asked her, and she said, well, when you did the patio, you had a variance for the fence. And I said, okay. do I get a permit for that or anything, or do you guys have any paperwork? To which she said, no, we don't permit for fences. The neighborhood's in control of whether you get a fence or not. We just allow it if it's in preservation area, which you got the variance when you had the patio. To which then I literally hung up the phone, called the neighborhood, spoke with them. They said, yeah, great. Even though we had 2 plot layouts, fully scaled out, drawn out things. That was the one from when we did the patio, I believe. And then we had another one drawn. And then when we did this, I called and had another one done, so I knew that it was accurate. We had it restaked. And at that point, after they came out restaked, it took about a week and a half for them to come out and restake it. That's when I met with Jeff Jensen, again, the president of the association. He came out. We stood there. We looked at where the fence posts were going to go. He said, yeah, that's good. Let's just do that. Let's keep it on the property line and let's not go into the common ground. And so he said, that's fine. We're fine with that. So we put that where it was, started putting it up to the point of, then we got a bunch of rain. I stopped for a couple days, and that's when I got notified that we had to stop on it. So that's where we stopped back in May on that. But that's where we're at on it. I would just, at the end of the day, we love the house. We love the location within reason to the schools and things of that nature. Not too thrilled with how the traffic has sped up over the past few years in terms of the neighborhood. But that's something we're dealing with. And hopefully as the berm grows and stuff, that cuts down on some noise and some traffic noise and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, safety concerns for the kids, being able to be in the backyard with the walking path and stuff, and having a little bit of privacy to be able to enjoy the backyard versus hiding in the front of the house, surely would be nice. And I do have some pictures of recent activity in the backyard from literally even the night of the meeting that we left. I have those options also.
Please.
So. Yeah. So in terms of so that was literally the night of the meeting. We got back to the house, and there was St. Louis County had a car stopped. They actually stopped 3 cars there in just a matter of about 15 minutes. They were sitting at the pool running radar, and it was like a racetrack that night. But that was going into the end of the school year, and I think it was a long weekend, if I remember correctly. That was the second car they stopped. It was on May 13th. This was during the daytime. This was at 3:59 on May 13th. Once again, another car stopped. So they're out there doing what they can, but obviously, as we all know, county is spread extremely thin in this area. So they can't be here all the time, and we understand that, but we do appreciate what they're doing. This was literally last night at 1:07 a.m. when I went out there and saw that there. This was a video that was on Instagram that my daughter saw. One of her friends posted. Her friend, she was like, Dad, please don't let anybody know that I'm giving you this. But so this was a. This was Tuesday. So his friend literally walks up and pushes him into the berm. He goes tumbling through the berm. So this is what we see on a regular basis through here, is literally just this type of activity. This was in the berm, which is obviously dog things in a bag. So it seems to be where the berm is at least creating a bumper, if you will, but it's not stopping the kids from being able to do whatever. We had, until we redid the berm, it created almost a ramp for the kids on bikes. When we redid the berm and added a little more dirt to it and made it a little bit bigger and a little more constructed, before that, the kids would ride the bikes through. Before we added some more trees, we had about 18 more arborvitaes along the backside. And the kids were literally ramping the bikes over the berm, jumping over it and continuing through the 2 yards. So that's pretty much what it comes down to. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the petitioner?
Did you say that you put your own money into that berm?
Oh, yes. That was 100% my money.
And it's all on common ground?
It's all on common ground. Yes, we approached the neighborhood with, hey, we want to try to cut down on some of the traffic cutting through the yard. And originally we weren't going to go for looking into a fence. We said, can we do something to kind of create a little bit of a bumper? And they said, go for it. It's one less thing we have to maintain or deal with. I said, I'm 100% fine with maintaining it all. Obviously, that is a lot of dirt and a lot of product that went into that product. And but I was happy to do it. We get tons of compliments from what the property looks like back there, and everyone seems to like what we've done. But yes, that was 100%. There was no money other than ours dumped into this backyard. Period. So.
Joe, that's all in resource protection. The berm, right?
Actually, that area where the trail is located is not protected. So again, the situation is the developer actually establishes the extent of the resource protection as part of the zoning process. And where we knew we were going to have active recreational facilities, we basically steered them away. And oftentimes that means that it ends up on private lots, not common ground. Because again, we're trying to utilize as much of the area we can for the recreational facilities we require.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Godai, thank you very much.
Thank
Greatly
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right, at this time, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to the request? Seeing none. The department has created a report, a finding of fact, and a recommendation. It is already part of the record. However, is there anyone in the audience who would like to have that report read at this time? Seeing none. Any member of the board wishing to have it read at this time? Seeing none. Joe, any final comments from the department?
No, sir. You had accommodated the department's statement at the start of the hearing, and we appreciate that, but the department is available for any questions or comments.
Great, thank you. Any final comments or questions for the department?
Anyone?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
So, Joe, it looks like property 282 next to it, it must have had a variance granted for that fence. Is that correct?
Actually, the property owner did request a variance. The board did not grant the variance because there was not evidence of the trespass issue except the owner's statements. And the owner could still do a majority of the yard without the benefit of the variance. We did verify that the fence appears to be where it was intended to be as part of our May research in advance of that hearing. Mm-hmm. And so the resource protection line does not necessarily follow logical locations.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I can see if you look at the rear fence line and the petitioner's property, it looks like it goes laterally across almost right to the back of his concrete patio, which takes a majority of the backyard. Yeah.
And again, in the department's findings of fact, we did acknowledge that a fence is not like a structure with a large footprint or a small footprint, regardless, and that by its nature, it is a significant amount of disturbance. And with the installation of the berm and the plantings, whatever disturbance that might occur with the fence certainly would be offset by the addition of that particular area of additional mulch, fill, and plantings.
Okay, and 274 does not have a fence, I take it, the one to the adjacent, the other side.
Not to my knowledge, but
I'm sorry? They do not. Okay. Okay.
I believe that's the house in the background of the slide, just
Yeah, we've
past
got
the
a
playground area.
Fairly dense tree.
So I have a question.
Yeah,
So
thank
is the house that on that side that's not fenced, they also have this problem with trespassing? Is that the house you said they were going through both yards?
Correct. Their fence stops, obviously their house is more forward than ours does.
I see.
But due to the fact that their fence line goes back to their property line as well, or to where the work is preparation area, it still gives, they have a very deep backyard because of that, but it still lets the kids now cut through. It kind of created sense, and I understand completely why the city didn't allow that fence to go further back. A, they have a giant utility box that's in the backyard that would have created a problem.
282?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So it does make sense of why that wasn't granted to go further back, because they would have fenced in or had to do kind of a crazy fence line to go around the facility, just to gain another maybe 10 feet before it hits.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great, thank you so much. All right, we will close the proceedings at this time. I would like to call for a vote, a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions, please.
I'll motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. I'd like a second, please.
I'll second.
I have a first, or a motion by Jared, a second by Deborah to approve. We will take a vote at this time. Jared?
Approve.
Deborah?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So, congratulations. And next time you see a Big Mac up in the thing, let me know, please.
Help with that.
Absolutely. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, appreciate it. You guys have a good evening. You too.
Joe?
Kathy?
Kathy?
BA 1219, Glenn and Brenda Keeley, 1412 Bald Eagle Road, Wildwood, Missouri 63038. Request an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of constructing an accessory structure, 12 feet by 16 feet storage shed, upon the property located at 1412 Bald Eagle Road, locator number 26U 510037, Old State Farms Edition, Plat 1, Lot 30. Thereby authorizing a side yard setback distance of 26 feet in lieu of the 30-foot standard from the lot's southern boundary line. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415.090 NU Non-Urban Residence District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance and is in Ward 6.
Joe, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, before beginning the hearing and having the petitioner come forward to present this particular case, the Department of Planning would like to introduce into the record the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Chapter 415 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Zoning Ordinance. A file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request, and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation, and then finally any other testimony, exhibits, or other evidence presented as part of tonight's public hearing on this request. Mr. Chair and members of the board, we have a brief slide presentation if you'd like to see that at this time, and Ms. Arnett would be glad to do it for you.
That would be fantastic. Kathy, please.
Similar to the last request, we'll start with an aerial of the overall area. This is in the southeastern portion of the city, and Old State Farms is accessible from Old State Road, which is off the slide to the north. You can see the Glencoe area is the smaller lots, that historic community near Old State and State Route 109, and you can see the Merrimack River, which is the city's southern boundary, in the bottom of the slide. This is a close-up aerial of the property itself. You can see it's nearly 100% wooded, and the home sits on the western portion of the property. This is the same aerial, but to show some topography. The property has 164 feet of fall from the roadway along Bald Eagle Road down to an ephemeral drainage way that runs in its eastern corner. This is a picture of the home itself from Bald Eagle Road. You can see the play that the topography has immediately as the home sits down a little bit from the roadway. This is Bald Eagle Road looking to the south, and the home is on the left. This is the adjacent property across Bald Eagle Road. And this is Bald Eagle Road. Now we're looking north, which is back towards Old State, and the subject site is on the right. That's their driveway, mailbox, and home shown on the right side of the slide. And again, just as the aerial showed, you can see the heavy woodlands in the entire subdivision. This is the petitioner's driveway, which heads back towards where the accessory structure is proposed at the end of the driveway. This, again, is just further down the driveway. You can see, again, the topography and the use of the retaining wall to hold back the earth to get down to the driveway level. Again, at the terminus of the driveway, we'll have another slide closer up, but that's where the shed is proposed. This is the location of where the shed is proposed. In the petitioner's information they provided, he references a grand tree. It is on the very left corner of the slide, and there's a better slide next, but I wanted you to see this angle so you could view the tree in proximity to where the shed is proposed. And there's the tree, dead center. It's about a 30-inch grand tree, and that's the diameter at breast height. This is a site plan of the property, so you can see where the road, the asphalt drive, the retaining wall, and then the proposed pad for the storage shed are all located. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for the department?
Thank you.
Well done as always. Thank you very much. Would the petitioner or their representative please come forward? And I'm going to suggest it's you two because you're the only ones here. So I feel pretty comfortable that you all are the Keeleys. Is that a safe bet?
That is correct.
If you would, please state your name, address, relationship to the property, and then be sworn in by the court reporter, please.
Okay, my name is Glenn Keeley. The property is 1412 Bald Eagle Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038.
I'm Brenda Keeley.
I do.
Fantastic. If you would, please explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I might, for just 1 second, I'd like to express my appreciation not only to Miss Kathy Arnett, but Miss Gaston, Mr. Steve Vogel, because through their assistance, we were able to, I appreciate their advice, and they were able to identify the materials that were needed for this presentation, and we are very grateful for that. As was mentioned earlier, we're here tonight to petition for a variance from the standard side yard setback of 30 feet as per Chapter 415-090 Non-Urban Residence District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance, Ward 6. This was mentioned a couple minutes ago. We're requesting a variance of the side yard setback from the standards of 30 feet to a side yard setback of 26 feet for a net change of 4 feet on the southern boundary of our property. We have lived in our current residence for almost 40 years. Our neighborhood, Old State Farms, is comprised of multi-acre home sites occupied by neighbors who have the opportunity to enjoy the multifacets of nature at their very doorstep. That being said, supporting our natural environment requires a significant number of large pieces of equipment, along with a significant amount of storage space. To date, we have utilized every square foot of available space in our garage to store this equipment. Unfortunately, there is no longer adequate storage space in our garage to satisfy our needs. At this point, it is our conclusion that the only logical solution to satisfy our needs is to construct a storage shed on the southern boundary of our property. The site we have selected was once utilized as a playground area, as the only level area left on our property. Since a portion of the site is protected on two sides by a stone wall, as you saw earlier, there will be no impact on the existing natural slope of the surrounding area. Such a shed will not be in conflict with any indentures for our Board of Trustees, since their duties are limited strictly to the support of our existing road maintenance. I'd like to take a second, and I believe this was placed out there. You have a copy from our president of the Old State Farms Maintenance Agreement stating that they have no rights to do anything as far as the property. The construction of the shed will be by Tough Shed and will take no longer than a day or day and a half to construct. As an aside, I'd like to say that our development has several such sheds. It is our goal to make the shed aesthetically appealing, not only to our property, but the neighbors as well. To do this, the setback variance of 4 feet from 30 feet to 26 feet is necessary for several reasons. First, this structure will need a concrete floor and respective footings. In addition, due to the limited access, Tough Shed will construct the shed on the site and require a minimum of 2 feet working access on all 4 sides. And that, you have another exhibit. It's this one here, which is basically a mock-up of the shed. And then in the bottom right, there's job site installer details stating what they have to build a shed. This is problematic for a couple of reasons. First, a 30-foot side yard setback will require footings being excavated less than a foot from the base of a grand white oak, which was the one mentioned earlier, putting its survival in question. It would not allow for this 2-foot construction access requirement put forth by Tough Shed. In addition, the 30-foot setback would force the leading edge of the building into the backyard. Not only would this be visually unappealing, but a significant repositioning of the irrigation lines and sprinkler heads would also be necessary. In closing, I would like to thank the board for giving us this opportunity to present our proposal and hopefully consider a favorable response to our petition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keeley, and I greatly appreciate your very kind comments about city staff. We think they're pretty darn incredible as well. So thank you very much. Any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
There are no questions from anyone in the audience because there is no one in the audience. Would anyone like to hear the oral report read? No, they would not. Joe, any final comments from the department?
Just a couple, Mr. Chair, with your permission and the board's. Mr. Chair and members of the board, the Department of Planning is supporting the requested variance, and in its recommendation report provides the issues and findings of fact in support of that recommendation. We too would like to thank the Keeleys for their patience during this process and the kind words they've said about 3 of the staff members. We do appreciate it, and we thank them for it. And if there are any questions of Ms. Arnett, Mr. Young, or I, we'll be glad to try to answer them at this time.
Any questions for the department?
Thank
See none.
you again.
Thank you very much. All right, we will close the proceeding. I would like to ask for a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions, please.
I'll make a motion we approve this as requested.
I have a motion to approve. Second, please.
I'll second.
I have a first by Bob Nandor, a second by Deborah Coleman. We will vote now. Jared?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Congratulations, enjoy, and have fun cutting the grass. At this time, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Again, we can't do it without you, so we sure